You bought a beautiful rose. You imagined it covered in blooms, the kind of plant that makes your neighbors slow down when they walk past your yard. And instead, you got a sad, leggy stick with 3 yellow leaves and maybe one flower that lasted about as long as a sneeze. Your rose is dying because of something you did in the first 10 minutes of planting it, long before you ever picked up a watering can. I've watched gardeners spend a fortune on premium roses, expensive fertilizers, fancy pruners, and then quietly kill the whole thing on day 1 with a mistake that takes 30 seconds to avoid. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the 7 planting mistakes that secretly sabotage your roses. These are the specific, sneaky errors that separate a rose that struggles for years from one that explodes with blooms by its second summer. Stick around to number 5 especially. It's the one that even experienced gardeners get wrong, and it's the difference between a rose that survives and a rose that thrives. Let's get into it. Number 1, you planted it where the morning is wrong, not where the sun is full. Everyone tells you roses need full sun, 6 hours they say, and so you find the brightest, hottest, most blazing corner of your yard, usually the spot that bakes in the afternoon, and you plant your rose right there, feeling proud of yourself. Here's what they didn't tell you. Not all sun is equal. The timing of the sun matters far more than the total count of hours. What your rose actually craves is morning sun. Early light dries the dew off the leaves quickly, and dry leaves are leaves that don't get fungal disease. That afternoon baking spot you chose, it keeps the morning shaded so your foliage stays damp for hours, and now you're basically running a black spot and powdery mildew breeding ground. So, before you dig, watch your yard for a day. Notice where the sun lands at 8 and 9 in the morning, that east-facing or southeast-facing spot, the one that gets gentle early light and maybe a little relief in the brutal afternoon. That's your gold mine. Especially in a hot climate, a rose that gets strong morning light and dappled afternoon shade will outperform the one roasting in full exposure every single time. Plant for when the sun hits, not just how long. Number 2. You dug a hole the exact size of the pot. This one feels logical, which is exactly why it's so dangerous. You buy a rose in a 1-gallon container, so you dig a hole that's 1 gallon shaped. Pop it in, pat it down, done. Makes sense, right? Wrong. When you dig a hole that's just barely bigger than the root ball, you're trapping your rose in a tiny pocket of loose soil surrounded by hard, compacted earth. The roots hit that wall, and instead of spreading out, they circle around inside the hole like a goldfish in a bowl. The plant gets root-bound in the ground, which is a special kind of tragedy because you can't even see it happening. Here's the fix. Dig your hole at least twice as wide as the root ball. Wider is better, but keep it only about as deep as the root ball is tall. Width is where the magic happens. Roses send most of their feeder roots out sideways, not straight down, so you want a big, loose, welcoming runway for them to spread into. Loosen the soil on the sides of the hole with your fork so the roots don't hit a slick, hard wall. Think of it like this. You're not digging a hole, you're building a neighborhood. Give the roots room to move in and settle. Number 3. You buried the graft union or you didn't. Okay, this is where roses get a little personality on you. Most roses you buy, especially hybrid teas and floribundas, are grafted. That means there's a knobby, swollen bump near the base of the plant where the pretty top variety was joined onto a tougher rootstock. That bump is called the graft union, and how deep you plant it is genuinely a make-or-break decision. Here's where almost everyone messes up. They treat every rose the same. But the right depth depends entirely on your climate, and getting this backwards will quietly cost you the whole plant. If you live somewhere with cold, freezing winters, you want to plant that graft union about 2 to 3 inches below the soil line. Why? Because that bump is the most vulnerable part of the plant, and burying it protects it from frost that would otherwise kill the grafted top and leave you with only the rootstock, which produces ugly, useless flowers nothing like you paid for. But if you live somewhere warm where freezes are rare, you do the opposite. You keep that graft union at or slightly above the soil line. Bury it in a hot, humid climate, and you're inviting rot and disease to set up shop right at the plant's weak point. So find that knobby bump, look at your winters, then plant accordingly. This one detail tells me instantly whether someone actually knows roses or just reads the back of the tag. Number 4. You backfilled with the good stuff. This one is going to feel counterintuitive, so stay with me. You dig your hole and you think, I'm going to give this rose the best start ever. So you fill the hole back up with rich, fluffy, store-bought potting mix or pure compost, pampering it, treating your rose like royalty, and you just created a trap. Here's what happens. When you fill a hole with soil that's dramatically richer and fluffier than the native soil around it, you create what gardeners call a bathtub effect. Water flows easily through the soft, good stuff, hits the hard native soil at the bottom and sides, and then just sits there. Your rose ends up sitting in a soggy underground pool, and roses absolutely despise wet feet. Root rot moves in. Meanwhile, those pampered roots have zero reason to ever venture out into the real soil, so they stay weak and dependent. The fix is more boring and far more effective. Use your native soil as the base of your backfill and amend it gently. Mix in maybe a third compost, no more. You want the transition between your planting hole and the surrounding earth to be gradual, not a shocking jump from luxury hotel to concrete sidewalk. Mix it. Make the soil in the hole only slightly better than what's around it. Your rose doesn't need to be coddled, it needs to be trained to live in your actual yard.
You watered the leaves and the surface, not the roots. This is the big one, the one I warned you about, and it's the mistake that even seasoned gardeners commit out of pure habit. After planting, you grab the hose, you spray the whole plant down, leaves, canes, the soil surface, give it a nice, refreshing shower, and walk away feeling like a good plant parent. It looks like watering, it feels like watering, but it's quietly doing two harmful things at once. First, every drop you put on the leaves is an invitation for fungal disease. Wet foliage, especially heading into the evening, is exactly how black spot and mildew spread across your rose, your hand delivering the problem. Second, and this is the sneaky part, a light surface watering only wets the top inch of soil. The roots sense that shallow moisture and grow upward toward it, staying near the surface where they dry out fast and get scorched. You've trained your rose to have lazy, shallow roots that can't fend for themselves. Here's how you fix it for the entire life of the plant. Water at the base, slowly and deeply. Aim the water at the soil, right over the root zone, and let it soak down deep. Deep watering, less frequently, is the secret. It pulls the roots downward, building a strong, drought-resistant root system that can handle a hot afternoon without you panicking with a hose. And keep that water off the leaves. Water in the early morning so any splash dries fast. Burn this into your memory. Deep and at the base, never shallow and over the top. Get this right, and you've solved half of all rose problems before they ever start. You left the soil bare around the base. You finally got your rose in the ground, watered it properly, and you step back to admire that nice, clean circle of fresh soil around the stem. Looks tidy, looks finished. It's not finished. That bare soil is working against you every single day. Exposed soil around a rose is a triple threat. It bakes in the sun and cooks the shallow roots. It lets every drop of moisture evaporate almost as fast as you add it, so you end up watering twice as often. And it leaves the door wide open for weeds to move in and steal the nutrients you wanted your rose to have. Worse, when rain or watering hits bare dirt, it splashes soil-borne fungal spores up onto your lower leaves. There's that disease problem again, sneaking in through the back door. The fix takes about 5 minutes. Lay down a 2 to 3 inch layer of mulch around the base of your rose. Shredded bark, wood chips, straw, whatever you've got. But here's the part people forget. Keep the mulch a couple of inches away from the main stem. Don't pile it up against the canes like a little volcano, because trapped moisture against the stem invites rot. You want a donut, not a mountain. That layer of mulch regulates soil temperature, locks in moisture, smothers weeds, and creates a barrier against splash-up disease, all at once. It's the single, laziest, highest payoff thing you can do for a newly planted rose. You planted it shoulder to shoulder with everything else. Last one, and it's the mistake born from good intentions and a love of full, lush garden beds. You want that magazine look. Roses packed in tight, surrounded by companions, not a gap of bare earth in sight. So you crowd your new rose right up against its neighbors. Cozy, full, beautiful. And you just choked it. Roses are divas about airflow. When you plant them too close to other plants or too close to each other, the air goes stagnant around the foliage. Moisture lingers, leaves stay damp, and once again, you've built the perfect environment for black spot, mildew, and rust to take hold and spread from plant to plant like wildfire. On top of that, crowded roses fight underground too, with their roots competing for the same water and nutrients, so everybody loses and nobody thrives. The fix is simple but requires a little faith. Give your rose room to breathe, generally 2 to 3 feet of clearance around it, depending on the variety's mature size. I know, when you first plant it, that spacing looks ridiculous, bare, awkward, too much empty space. But trust me, that rose is going to fill in faster than you think, and in one season you'll be grateful you gave it room instead of cramming it in. Plant for the size your rose will become, not the size it is the day you buy it. Airflow is free disease prevention, and it's the easiest medicine you'll ever give your garden. So let's lock it in. Plant where the morning sun hits, not just where it's brightest. Dig wide, not deep. Get your graft union depth right for your climate. Backfill with mostly native soil so you don't build a soggy bathtub. Water deep and at the base, never shallow and over the leaves. Mulch that bare soil in a donut, not a volcano, and give your rose room to breathe. Get these 7 right, and here's the truth. Roses are not the fissy, dramatic plants everyone makes them out to be. They're tough, they're forgiving, they want to grow for you. You just have to stop fighting them in the 10 minutes. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these 7 did you do without realizing it? Be honest, drop it in the comments below because I promise you are not alone and I read every single one. If even one of these tips saved your rose today, do me a quick favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more gardeners who are about to make the same mistakes. And before you go, if you're serious about getting your roses to actually bloom, watch the video popping up on your screen right now, because planting them correctly is half the battle. What you do in the next few weeks is what turns a healthy rose into a blooming machine. I'll see you in that one. Now go save your roses.